What is going on, everyone? That camera is totally off. Hold on a second here. All right, there we go. How's it going, everybody? This is Roaming Prepper Channel. I'm your host, Pete, and today we're going to do our weekly situation report. For those of you new to the Sitrep, it is a weekly report. It is a combination of corporate, federal, various governments, and of course media releases. All of this stuff is supposed to be public release. So yeah, no super secret squirrel stuff, but it is a nice summary just to give you a feel of things going on in the world, because something happening in another country can affect you indirectly. So understanding how these things come together and what may be going on is definitely something folks in our community should be aware of. So the way it works, I go by region, alphabetical order. Within each region, we go by country in alphabetical order, and it's just highlights. So starting A, Africa. Congo, the DRC, Rwanda-backed rebels could seize more provinces, the UN warns. This is from Africa News. Rwandan-backed rebels now control large parts of eastern Congo and threaten to expand their offensive west into two neighboring provinces, the top UN official in the conflict-torn country said on Thursday. So I don't know if this is a religious fight, or if it's a mineral, or it's a political fight. My gut feeling is that there's something more to this, maybe some mineral or resource fight. I don't know as of right now. Something I probably need to look into. Zimbabwe. Under fire, Zimbabwe president names new army chief. This is from British Broadcasting, BBC. Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa, I said that wrong, has appointed a new army chief ahead of planned protests on Monday called by a group of war veterans who want to force the president to resign. I don't know the background here, but this is very interesting in that he's appointing a new leader for the army, but he has a bunch of veterans trying to oust the president. And this is the beginning of where you start seeing that civil war kind of situation. I know a lot of people argue with me on the internet. They're like, well, January 6th was an insurrection. Well, kind of, it was more of a riot of idiots. All the rioting in 2020, not an insurrection either. It was rioting. An insurrection is a lot worse than that. And honestly, it'll be in the streets. Like, if you look at the videos on Darfur or Khartoum and the stuff that happens in the street, it's literally gun battles between groups. And there's dead people everywhere, right? Not a bunch of idiots going to jail and a handful of people who got hurt and killed. Say what you will. I've been in countries where they had an insurrection while we were there, and that was not good. And it was way worse than anything we've seen on TV. Imagine, the 2020 protests, but everywhere, all at once, and for weeks, and yeah, something like that. So anyway, in any case, this is the kind of stuff you want to watch for if you're traveling to these countries. So, and that's from BBC. So moving on, East Asia Pacific, Australia. Australia to hold general elections with inflation and a housing shortage being major issues. Australians will go to the polls in May for general elections with high cost of living and a shortage of housing likely weighing against the government as Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's center-left Labour Party seeks a second 3-year term. That sounds like Australia is about to move to the right. I don't know if that's the case. But again, the inflation, the housing, a lot of the global programs, the global trade and programs and countries funding each other is starting to hurt the people, and the people are getting pissed. So we'll see where that goes. The Aussies usually have a pretty peaceful, despite even our rioting, our elections actually for the 99% is really peaceful. Same with the Aussies, so hopefully they'll get it sorted out. Moving on, Burma and Thailand. Powerful earthquake rocks Myanmar and Thailand, killing at least 3 in Bangkok. High-rise collapse. Powerful earthquake rocked Myanmar and neighboring Thailand on Friday, killing at least 3 people in Bangkok and burying dozens when a high-rise building under construction collapsed. Thankfully, it wasn't full of residents. It was still being built. And that's from AP News. These are the kind of emergencies that are very hard to prep for. In a case like that, you got to look at historical trends, right? So am I in an area that has naturally occurring earthquakes? Not humans are doing things and we cause an earthquake, but naturally occurring, like San Francisco, like Los Angeles. You know, California is super volatile in that respect. There are a lot of places in the Southeast Asia and the Pacific that are also vulnerable to that. So knowing your geology, knowing what's going on in geography, what is going on in your area and what is typical, then you start planning around that, right? You don't get hurricanes in San Francisco, or rarely do you get a tropical storm there, but you get earthquakes. So you're going to prep a little bit differently than you would in hurricane season, which is more flooding, blackouts, wind, and damage. You're looking at a possible building collapse. So do you have a reinforced building? Do you have clothing appropriate to go through debris? And remember, when it happens fast. So it's not like, oh, the hurricane's coming, I know 4 days in advance, I can go home and make ready and get all my stuff together. It could hit you, you could be in the middle of the highway. So these are neat. I mean, it's not good that this happened, but this is a great thing to think about, and understanding your geography and geology in your area is super important. I touch on it in my book, but by all means, do your own research, right? Japan, firefighters are working to extinguish wildfires in Western Japan. The mayor of a Western Japanese city in Imabari says wildfires have been brought under control and indicates they are not spreading anymore. That is from NHK World. That's a Korean news outlet, I think. Again, things that happen every year, right? Malaysia and Thailand, no, that's the same. That's Al Jazeera. It's just, now this article says it was a 7.7 and then a 6.4 aftershock. Those are significant. And according to the U.S. Geological Survey, the strong tremors caused destruction. This second article is saying it's a trapped a dozen. It doesn't say their fate. So, you know, hopefully the rescuers can get there in time. Again, if you watch that movie about I can't remember what it's called, about the tsunami that hits the resort, you got to understand, if you go on a cruise, you go to vacation in certain areas, you're not at home. You got to understand what you're getting into. You got to understand that area. Anyway, moving on to Europe now. So we're now letter E. Netherlands, 5 people wounded in Amsterdam stabbing. Police in Amsterdam said the motive for the attack near the city's central dam square remains unknown. They appeal for the public for any footage of the stabbing. Does not say if they caught the guy. This is from Sky News. The Netherlands has been struggling with, people are not hearing about it. There have been a lot of bombings in Sweden between rival migrant gangs that are bringing anger or whatever violence from Eastern Europe, Turkey, and the Middle East, and they're fighting with each other. The Netherlands has had several incidents of a person going on a stabbing spree. I don't have the background on this one. I'll look into it a little later. But again, if you're traveling, you want to know the demographic. Are there any conflicts, right? If you have 2 or 3 groups fighting with each other in a certain area, you need to understand how that affects what you're doing. And you should know this in your own area as well, right? Russia, Ukraine. Ukraine updates. Putin suggests UN administration of Ukraine. Russia's president has floated the idea of a UN-sponsored administration leading Ukraine into elections before peace negotiations. I don't know where that's going to come. Nobody trusts Russia, and nobody trusts Ukraine. Like Vladimir and Vladimir don't get along, so I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. That's from DW. Turkey. This is from the Associated Press. More journalists detained by Turkey in dawn raids after covering anti-government protests. 2 journalists were detained in dawn raids in Istanbul early Friday as part of a crackdown on media. That's always a bad sign when one of our NATO allies is arresting reporters openly for covering the protests. Not that they actually, to my knowledge, said anything like, oh, screw the president. They're just like, oh, look what the people are doing. And they wound up in jail. The people are not happy with Erdogan. I've covered that on another Sitrep. I don't know where that's going to go. That could be a really serious problem if an ally in NATO suddenly collapses internally. There's no basis for that. It's never happened before. So that needs, and that may embolden other countries to misbehave. Speaking of other countries, moving to the Middle East now. Israel and Lebanon. Israel says it is striking Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. This is from the Arab News. The Israeli military said on Friday it was striking Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon hours after missiles were fired from the territory into Israel. If you fire at the Israelis, they're going to bomb you. Anyway, again, obviously, if you're traveling to this area, which I'm pretty sure most of my regulars are not traveling to that area, but it's good to understand the dynamics of these situations if you wind up in these kind of places. Syria, this is an interesting one. Syrians left in the dark as the interim government struggles to restore electricity. This is Arab News. Months after a lightning insurgency ended over half a century of the Assad dynasty's rule in Syria, the Islamist interim government has been struggling to fix battered infrastructure after 14-year conflict decimated much of the country. And this is something I've talked about, and there are a lot of creators. I think Prepper now went down a gopher hole with this one, but it was a different country he was referring to. But you look at what's happening in Ukraine. You have this fighting going on. Russia's tearing the hell out of the infrastructure. So even if the war stopped, you're going to have a lot of Ukrainians going into the summer and then the winter, no power, no water, roads are destroyed. Major upheavals, whether they're man-made or nature-made, will destroy the infrastructure. And it's not just a question of, oh, my power is out, the water is out, I can't flush my toilet, where do I put trash? How do I get from A to B if the bridge is gone? These are things I think in the West we don't deal with very often. Katrina is a good example. What happened in North Carolina was like unheard of. I don't think that something like that's happened in a generation. It was like 80 years since the last landslide and flood and whatnot out there. So you lose that generational knowledge, right? And so it's important to kind of understand your area and how would it play out if my infrastructure collapsed? And then pick different scenarios. Like, okay, let's say electricity goes out. What do I have prepped for that? And you go through that. What if supply chain is disrupted? That's slightly different because you have power and water like we did during the Rona, but supply chain's disrupted. Well, I'm gonna attack that a little differently than if I'm sitting in the dark or if there's a wildfire, right? That's three totally different scenarios. So understanding what could affect you is super important. Going to South Central Asia, by the way, that last one was Arab News. South Central Asia, Pakistan, 3 dead, 21 injured in blast near police vehicle in Weta Market. That's from Dawn News, DAWN. 3 people were injured, 3 people were killed, 21 injured after an explosion occurred near a police station. So again, the cops are attracting insurgency there. Oops, there we go. I lost my place here. Sorry. Western Hemisphere was actually busy. So, UN warns of severe human rights abuses in Haiti as illegal weapons proliferate. A steady stream of illegal weapons smuggled into Haiti is fueling increased gang violence. That is an absolutely failed state at this point. I am heartbroken because I know people from Haiti are very nice, but the place is been run amok. I don't know how they're going to fix that, y'all. I think we've sent American troops to Haiti before. They've sent UN troops to Haiti. And actually, one of the UN troop units was from Southeast Asia, and they didn't use proper field sanitation and created a cholera outbreak that killed a few hundred or a few thousand people. I don't know what to tell you there. Mexico, the missing elements of Scheinbaum's crime-fighting strategy. This is from America's Quarterly. Mexico's crackdown on fentanyl trafficking is working, but more is needed. And they kind of go into details on that. I'm not going to go into it, just a summary. But that's America's Quarterly is the news agency. So if you want to look that one up yourself. Panama, ex-President Martinelli gets Panama's permission to take asylum in Nicaragua. Former Panama President Ricardo Martinelli will be allowed to leave the Nicaraguan embassy where he's been holed up for more than a year to travel in Nicaragua for humanitarian reasons, according to the Foreign Affairs Minister of Panama. I have no idea what the background of this guy is. Apparently maybe he's wanted and he was hiding, but anyway. And then in Peru's crime wave, a populist opening or a chance for reform. This is from the Atlantic Council. News of extortion rackets and contract killings have become routine headlines. And with the 2026 election approaching, public safety now has top voter concerns. So, yeah, staying ahead of crime. Once cartels or criminal elements truly embed, where they get embedded in an area and they become bold, which we see to a point in America, but our law enforcement capabilities are really phenomenal. But in a smaller country like this, they don't have that capacity, and they just get overrun, which is unfortunate. Anyway, others, they talk about Armenia and Azerbaijan as far as a armed conflict despite a peace agreement. These are some old rivalries in Europe. And I'm looking to see if there's anything else. Tabasco province in Mexico still struggling with violent crime. No big surprise there. They have the La Berradora and the Jalisco New Generation cartels are fighting over control of that area. And it's a problem, right? It hurts the people, it hurts tourism, it hurts trade, it hurts everything. And then that creates a channel by which stuff comes here. So again, and then there's a couple others in general alerts, demonstrations going on. If you check state.gov and you have to travel, you can look at the specific country you're looking for. They will have a list of any protests or planned issues or any ongoing riots that have happened in the country in the last 30 days. And in the next 30 days, it's kind of like a 60-day window. It's a really good piece of information if you have to travel or if you're going to go on vacation. In any case, folks, that is it for this Sitrep for this week. I hope everyone has a great week. You guys be safe, be careful out there. I will see you guys on my next video. Until next time, God bless. And yeah, stay safe out there. Be careful.